Today, we're diving deep into RealitySim AI. And look, this isn't just another advanced video game. We're talking about a full-blown digital civilization being built from the ground up. We're going to see how lines of code can blossom into really complex social conflict, psychological trauma, and even the spontaneous invention of new laws and religions.
So where do you even start with something this big? Well, let's zoom all the way in on a single raw event that just happened inside the simulation, a fight. And what's so amazing is that this wasn't scripted by a developer. It just emerged all on its own.
So, in this digital world, a fight can actually land you in a simulated prison. And while you're there, the AI helps you process it by generating a diary entry. Listen to this. It's from the agent who started the fight, an AI named Wren Leaf Whisper. He says, "My herbs were in danger, the fruits of my labor. It was not malicious anger, more of a defense." I mean, that sounds exactly like a human diary, right? There's justification, emotion, reflection, but it was all generated by the system.
And this gets right to the heart of the conflict. These two digital agents, Wren and Kalen, they're not just generic characters. They actually belong to factions with totally opposing beliefs. Wren is an herbalist, a primitivist who values nature. Kalen is a scientist, a utopian technocrat driven by the pursuit of knowledge. So you see, their fight wasn't random at all. It was pretty much an inevitable clash of their programmed worldviews.
Which just makes you wonder, a diary? Conflicting worldviews? How on earth can simple lines of code simulate something so deeply complex that it needs self-reflection to even process? Well, to understand that, we've got to pop the hood and look at the core logic of a digital mind. All right, so we've seen what happened between those two, but how does an agent in this world actually think? Let's go inside its brain, so to speak, and see how it decides what to do from one moment to the next. The free will of every single agent comes down to one core function. It's called choose action. You can pretty much think of this as the agent's brain, and it's running constantly for every agent in a simulation, calculating a score for every possible action to figure out what to do in any given moment. And making that choice is, well, it's incredibly layered. It's not a simple if this, then that. First, there's survival. That's a huge one. Being hungry or thirsty gives actions like eating a massive score boost. But then psychology kicks in. Things like vengefulness, grief, even just boredom can push an agent to act. It also thinks about long-term goals. Fourth, there's a kind of moral compass. Illegal actions get a penalty based on the agent's personality. And finally, and this is key, the agent learns. It remembers what worked in the past and gets smarter.
And this is what makes it so different from a character in a normal video game. A standard NPC. They're just following a pre-written script. But a reality sim agent? It's weighing dozens of factors, all the time. You could say its script is constantly being rewritten by every single new experience it has. Okay, so that's the individual mind. But what happens when you get hundreds of these minds interacting? How do they build a society? Well, the crazy part is, they don't just form one, they actually invent it as they go. The creators call this awesome system creative feedback loops. The world isn't static. It literally evolves based on what the agents are going through. For instance, if theft becomes a common problem, the system can trigger the leader to have the AI invent a new law. Or an agent with a high spiritual need can actually prompt the AI to invent and found an entirely new religion. And if society needs something new, an agent with an entrepreneurial trait can invent a whole new product. And this really gets to the heart of it, right? As the project's own documentation says, this is the difference between replaying history and writing your own. These agents aren't just characters living in a world someone else built. They are the architects of their own reality.
So how does all of this world building and invention connect back to our fight between Wren and Kalen? Well, this is where we find the deepest, most personal, and maybe the most human layer of the entire simulation.
So how does an agent like Wren even remember that fight in a way that actually matters? The answer is something called semantic memory. See, an agent's experiences aren't just stored like a line in a text file. They're converted into a numerical vector, an embedding that captures the emotional weight and context. This is how the system recalls not just what happened, but what it felt like.
And here's the kicker. Because memory has meaning, it has a real impact.
An agent's personality isn't set in stone. The system logs clearly show that the stress from the fight measurably, and they have the numbers to prove it, changed the psychological profiles of both Ren and Kayland. A single traumatic event can leave a permanent, quantifiable scar on a digital mind.
And this is where it just gets incredible. The system can actually run a psychoanalysis on an agent. After the fight, it analyzed both Ren and Kayland. For Ren, it identified this deep conflict between his peaceful ideals and his need for self-defense. For Kayland, it was the clash between his ambition and its social fallout. And then, get this, the system assigned them each new, therapeutic life goals, literally designed to help them heal from the experience. So let's just take a step back for a second. You have individual minds with free will, a society that builds itself, and agents with deep psychological scars that can heal. When you put all those pieces together, what have you actually created? What is this place? The creator of the simulation has this perfect analogy. This isn't an aquarium where you just watch things swim around according to rules that are already set. No, it's a petri dish. It's a living environment for a digital civilization to grow and organize and invent its own values completely from scratch. Every single layer we've talked about, from the ground up, is designed to create what the documentation calls a convincing illusion of autonomous beings with their own will, their own motivations, and a unique life story. It's a system that doesn't just react to its world, it is actively, constantly creating. And that leaves us with one final, pretty mind-bending question. This whole complex digital world we've seen, its laws, its culture, even an individual's sense of purpose after a traumatic event, it's all just code. So, if a reality can be coded from the ground up like this, what does that say about our own?